Have you ever noticed that some people always have a reason? I can't help it. This is just who I am. I've always been this way. My parents raised me like this. I'm trying. At first, your heart wants to be compassionate. You believe everyone deserves grace. So you step in. You encourage them. You remind them. You solve problems with them. Sometimes you even solve problems for them. Weeks become months, months become years. And one day you realize something. You're exhausted. Not because life is hard or only hard, because it can be, but because you've slowly become responsible for someone else's responsibilities. Here's the thinking upgrade. Stop asking whether they're sorry. Start asking whether they're stewarding the problem. Those are not the same thing. One of the biggest mistakes many of us make in relationships is confusing intention with stewardship. Someone can genuinely want things to be different, okay? Someone can even cry. They can feel guilty. They can pray. Yes, they can promise and apologize and still never consistently do the work that creates change. Heart logic, my philosophy, teaches us something different. Potential is not a stewardship strategy. We don't measure people by who they could become. We measure what they are faithfully stewarding today. That applies to dating, marriage, friendships, family, leadership, even ourselves. So, how do you know if someone is actually changing? I call this the stewardship test. Okay, I do this with a lot of my clients, both male and female. The first question is awareness. Can they clearly acknowledge the problem without minimizing it? Not, well, everyone does that. Not, that's just my personality. Not, you know how I am. Simply, you're right. I did that. The second question is ownership. Do they take responsibility without immediately explaining it away? There is a difference between an explanation and an excuse. Okay, so think of some of the people in your life. An explanation provides context. Okay, an excuse attempts to remove responsibility. The third question is action. What have they actually done? Not what are they planning to do. Not what they hope to do. Now think about anybody in your life. This is just not intimate partner relationships or marriage. This is anybody in your life. Not what they say they want to do. What specific steps have they already taken? Because action tells the truth that intentions cannot. And finally, consistency. I've said this throughout many of my videos. Has the new behavior remained consistent long enough to establish a different pattern? Anyone can have a good week, okay? Character is revealed over time. Jesus said, by their fruit you will recognize them. Fruit is observable, okay? Fruit grows over time. Fruit is evidence. Notice, he didn't say, You'll recognize them by their promises, or by their potential, or by how convincing they sound. He said, fruit. And you can even apply this to yourself if you see yourself in this, okay? It's about being transparent, not just with others, but with ourselves. Now, let's be careful. This is not about judging people. And it's certainly not about abandoning people who are struggling, okay? Scripture repeatedly calls us to bear one another's burdens. But Scripture also teaches personal responsibility, okay? Paul writes in Galatians that we are to help carry one another's burdens. And just a few verses later reminds each person to carry their own load. Those two ideas are not contradictory. They're complementary. Here's how. Healthy relationships know the difference between supporting someone and living their life for them. Psychology has a term called learned helplessness. Sometimes people become so accustomed to someone rescuing them that they stop believing they can solve problems themselves. Every time you rush in to rescue them, okay, you may unintentionally reinforce the very pattern that's keeping both of you stuck. Your compassion becomes the cushion that protects the problem. Take a breath. A lot to take in, yeah? So this is why this matters. Because eventually something begins happening inside of you. Resentment. Resentment. I hear it all the time. Resentment. Not explosive resentment. A slow burn resentment. You start feeling responsible for everything. You're carrying conversations, carrying finances, carrying emotional regulation, carrying planning, carrying follow through, okay? Carrying peace. And one day you realize you are no longer showing up because you freely choose to. You're showing up because you feel obligated to. That isn't authentic love. That's exhaustion disguised as loyalty. Here's another heart logic question. Don't just ask how you feel about them. Ask how you feel around them. What does your body tell you? Are you constantly anxious around this person, whoever it is? Could be a family member, could be a parent, could be a best friend, neighbor. Are you mentally rehearsing conversations? Are you hyper vigilant, like always on the watch? Okay. Emotionally depleted after every interaction? Your nervous system often recognizes an unhealthy pattern before your heart is willing to acknowledge it. Then ask yourself something even more difficult. What has this relationship already cost me? My peace? My health? My finances? My friendships? My relationship with God? My hobbies? Things I used to enjoy, I don't even feel like doing them anymore, right? My calling, my joy, my mornings, my future. If nothing changes, what does this relationship realistically look like in 6 months? 6 years? How long have you actually been at this? If you're dating, if this is the life is this the life you're agreeing to build? If it's a friendship, is this the role you want for the next 20 years? If it's family, how can you remain loving while establishing healthier boundaries? Remember, boundaries are not punishment. They're clarity. And clarity is kindness, especially if you're a woman of God. This can be difficult, and for men of God, but I'm a woman, so I'm going to talk to women, but anyone's welcomed. We want to be generous. We want to serve. We want to love people well, and we absolutely should. But biblical love is never permission to continually remove another person's responsibility. Helping someone become stronger is often more loving than repeatedly making life easier. What happens if you're not here anymore? The goal isn't dependence. The goal is stewardship. Because here's the truth. Ready? An apology acknowledges the past. Okay? Stewardship changes the future. Observe the pattern. Watch the fruit. Look for stewardship. Because discernment isn't learning to expect the worst in people. No, it's learning to see clearly enough that you can love wisely. Gotta go.